So, welcome everyone to our Spiritism at Noon, Spiritist Group of New York. We are currently studying the lessons of the book Empty Lives by Joanna de Angelis, psychographic automatic writing by Divaldo Franco. And we are in lesson 2 today. Um, each lesson is one particular, she's going to focus on one particular topic. So even if you missed any of them, you will still get the whole because each chapter will bring everything. And today I'm going to start sharing the screen with you. We are going to be reading chapter 2 um, from this book, and I'm going to ask Andrea to start reading for me, please.
Yes. King Triumphant. Rome had spread its crushing mantle over the known world, and its fearsome legions dominated the afflicted peoples. The power of the threatening Roman ego was everywhere, and human suffering was the natural consequences of its mighty. Julius Caesar had replaced the home gods and had been divinized, although he had succumbed to Brutus' treacherous dagger and those of other unfaithful senators at the height of his glory. The decadence of the first triumvirate had left marks of honors everywhere, and the second was dismantled after the suicide of Mark Antony upon his defeat at the second battle of the Philippe by Cassius and the ascendance of Octavian, governor of Rome.
Okay, let's stop here. So the title per se is already intriguing. She's talking about a triumphant king, and she starts talking about the Julius Caesars and the emperors that were dominating Rome, not only Rome but the whole Roman Empire, conquering lands, spreading horrors in each and everywhere, and showing um, the poison that prevail there, one wishing the other to be dead and actually killing them, like Julius Caesar that was murdered by Brutus, a person that he was protecting at that time. And then it came Mark Antony and Philip and Cassius, all of that, a substitution of people or emperors that were ambitious to get, this material power and to be the emperor of Rome or the Roman Empire. With all the successions of emperors, it came to a point where we had as emperor Emperor Octavian Augustus. And considering all the other ones, Octavian was a good person. He was the one that tried to implement some morals, not, reducing all this reign of horrors that were happening at that time. Let's read a little more before we ask for comments.
At that terrible time, it was a broken empire, but one that was struggling to rebuild. Under the new regime, a wave of harmony began to hover, where before the vultures of war had devoured the corpses of the vanquished peoples. A psychograph,
Psychosphere.
Psychosphere,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm reading on my phone, it's very small. A
Uh,
psychosphere piece is spread across the human landscape, and philosophers, poets, artists, and sages view the immense space with lessons of altruism and beauty. Rebellions, always ruthless crushed, had subsided, and progress began to pour out blessings of joy and of hope. It was in this climate of relatively social, political, and artistic equilibrium that Jesus was born in a humble cave in the small town of Bethlehem in Judah.
okay, let's stop here. So, as we know, the birth or the coming of Jesus to our planet, of course, with the being him, the governor, um, organizing the exact time that it would be more propitious for him to come and to teach us the lessons. And again, let us be reminded that when we say teach the lessons, it was not about just preaching, but most of all about acting, about the examples that he lived in his own life. Um, there was this combination of facts to propitiate a better atmosphere for people to be a little bit more in peace, a little bit more inclined to artistic, even to spiritual revelations. And that's why this change in governance, considering the Roman Empire, having Octavio Augustus as being the emperor at this moment and having high moral standards that he had, and helping to foment all this, more harmony that we didn't have before in terms of social life, political life, artistic equilibrium, that the psychosphere of the planet um, became more appropriate for Jesus to be born. And this is a very important thing, because if people were just worried about there is a mic opening. No. If people were just worried about the wars and the starvation and etc., we know we don't have that much opening in our lives to hear about the kingdom of heaven, things like this, right? So it was important to have this. The whole thing had been prepared beforehand. It was very important for Jesus to be born in this time. Even the Roman Empire at that point, because it was spreading throughout a bigger part of Europe and other places, there were no frontiers. Many of the people would be able to speak Latin as well. So the communication was easier in a way. And that's everything that was happening at that time. And that was a time that, comparing to what we had before, Joanna de Angelis says here, progress began to pour out blessings of joy and of hope. And this is when then Jesus was born. So let's continue a little more and then we will stop.
For more than 400 years, Israel had experienced a sepulchral silence regarding revelations about its Messiah, producing a great expectation of joy and of hope that could alleviate the pain and bitterness of the Jewish people. Suddenly, there was a tumult producing a renewal of customs and fears under the arbitrary governance of Herod the Great, the bringer of the previously unknown cruelty. He was not a Jew, but Idumean, and he detested the people whom he ruled. He in turn was hated by them as they suffered under his merciless yoke. Murders had become almost natural, whether in the upland palace in Jerusalem or in any of the miserable towns. Okay. Humanity could not understand what was happening when it heard Jesus' gentle yet powerful voice enveloped in peace, confronting the vultures of war that were devouring the corpses of the vanquished nations.
Okay. So here is interesting because we know about the prophets of Israel, and they were numerous, and they were always, talking about the coming of the messiahs. But the last prophet that real prophet that we had in Israel was 400 years before Jesus. So during that 400 years until the birth of Jesus, there was no more prophet. Israel didn't consider any of the other that came to be a prophet, like Daniel and so many others. So people were really deprived of words of encouragement. They only had what the previous prophets brought, but now they were in that expectancy, and a century, another century, 4 centuries, and nothing was happening. At the same time that Jesus was born, we had an important thing that was happening in Israel at that time, which was the governance of Herod the Great. And he was not Jewish himself. He was an Idumean, and he had no care for the people whatsoever. And if you remember from history, he is the one responsible for the killing of the children, the 2 years old, because of an understanding, a prophecy that they had, that a boy was born and was going to, let's say, dethrone him. And so there was so many murders happening, but but that was a time that things were beginning to feel different. I think sometimes we cannot imagine as much what it means to have a physical presence of Jesus on earth, in terms of the energy that he can expand around himself in so many places. Once I heard, I don't know if I'm mistaking the number, so I'll say that the small number, like the aura, the radiation from the medium Chico Xavier was like 20 meters, something like that. 20 meters away from him, you could you were already impacted by his presence. Maybe we ourselves have 2 centimeter stop, right? Can you imagine Jesus? Not that because he's not here now, we will not feel his energy surrounding us, but for those people that were there, the radiation of his presence, his spiritual involvement would, without a doubt, impact each and every one. So when he started finally to be able to communicate, to start his work here, it was then that many were impacted, and and we will be beginning seeing the changes. Now, before we continue, I would like to say if you have any questions or would like to make any comments. Okay, so let's go over then. It's yeah, actually, this point is more, for us to reflect. I think also when I read those chapters by Joanna de Angelis, it it motivates us to try to get to know better the history of the time as well, to understand the context in which Jesus was living, and about the communities. We cannot think about, uh, Jesus living in an 8 million people city like we do here in New York City, right? If the most populated towns there had about 1,000, 1,500 inhabitants, but so that's why the word of mouth was easy to be transmitted from one place to the other. So I think it's very important for us to think about it. So let's continue, Andrea.
A psychosphere of harmony hovered over the human landscape, providing the opportunity for love and fraternity with new existential ethical standards. Rebellions previously crushed with impiety, subsidized and subsid. Okay, today I can't read. Subsided, and progress began to pour out unexpected blessings. A revolution of ideas like never before, it started to sound from hilltop to hilltop, changing the geography of human hearts in despair. It was a voice that no storm could silence or lessen its unusual impact. In the atmosphere of in an atmosphere, a small group of loving men constituted the model of a happy society. The message was like a keen blade that penetrated the flesh of the heart, and no one who heard it could remain indifferent.
Okay, let's stop here. So, with all this work, everything happening in this region, things started to change. There was like a breeze, so to say, of a new hope, of a new dawn. And it's interesting because the way Joanna de Angelis describes here, from hilltop to hilltop, and when we look at, especially at the region where Jesus lived at the time in Galilee, where he stayed, Nazareth, Capharnaum, Magdala, Jerusalem, was really hilltop and hilltop, and where he professed his Sermon on the Mount, that so many people attended from the region, and the word start spreading. And we have to, and she mentions here the dedication of the disciples as well, a small group of loving men constituting the model of a happy society. Yeah, let us think about the context as well. At that time, it couldn't be different. It had to be men, right? Women didn't have that much possibility in the society, although Jesus had many women followers, and in most cases women were the ones sponsoring all the works of Jesus, financially sponsoring the works of Jesus, and the disciples as well. They were present, but they couldn't be because of the times, the ones that would be, we could say here, was the closest group, although we know that there, Mary of Magdala, even his mother and others, Mary and Martha, so many others that were following him. So, and the message came, to really remove the unnecessary layers of hatred, of fear that we had, to reach, like it says, the heart, to awaken in our hearts that we could be different, that there were some other alternatives for us to go through. So this is the group that that we were talking about, that we had at the time, all under Jesus' voice and examples and teachings. Any comments or question? Okay, so let's start again here. Okay, Andrea.
Despite being a draft of those abandoned by the world, it reached the upper echelons of society and contributed to the establishment of justice, solidarity among those who were terribly hostile towards one another. Advancing from the shores of Lake Gennesaret, or the Sea of Galilee, a poor region despised by many Jews, it crossed the scorching desert and the mountains, reaching the formal and hypocritical Sanhedrin and shaking its fragile structures. The multitudes, constantly persecuted and exhausted by unjust taxes, greed, and the perverse temporal power, had everyone's attention and aroused the rancor of the disgraceful dominator. No one was insensitive to his incomparable music.
So here, Joanna de Angelis makes a point that Jesus came, as he said, I didn't come for the healthy, but I came for the ones that were in need. In this case, whether they were poor or wealthy, all of them that were opening themselves to receive the knowledge, the lessons that Jesus were bringing, analyzing the examples, all of that, they were receiving it. So it's interesting, because if at the same time we are talking about a region that was sort of despised in that time in Israel, and it's interesting because today is one of the most productive regions, because it's not as a desert like we have in the north. So the Galilee is in the south. So Galilee is a very fertile land. At that time, it basically survived from the fishermen, and Magdala, which was a city very close to Capharnaum, where Peter lived, and Jesus most of the time stayed in Peter's house. Magdala at that time was a very important port. And so ships from different places and nationality would come in those shores and would hear the message of Jesus. one talking to the other, talking about that man, talking about, the example, talking about what he said. And they were the ones, so the fishermen actually were spreading for all the region. The Sea of Galilee is very, very large. It spread to all the regions and helped in the same dissemination of everything that Jesus was bringing. And in a very simple way, opposite to the way that the Pharisees from the Sanhedrin were doing at that time. So it could reach each and every one. And like he said, even those that could not follow him, leave everything behind and follow him, they were touched by him. And talking about it, I was really remembering the story that we have of the rich young man that came to Jesus and wanted to follow Jesus. And according to how it is described, he is described, he was a young man of very good morals. He was really ready to follow and capable of following Jesus. But he asked Jesus if he could start following him the following day, because that day he had a race at the of I don't remember the names of the horses and the um, but like the little carriage that they used to do in the hippodrome. And and Jesus told him, follow me now. And he said, I cannot do this today, but tomorrow I'll be with you. And Jesus said, yes, tomorrow you will be with me. But then he died in that race, and lost his opportunity. So he was ready, but he couldn't leave behind that, commitment, maybe vanity of going there and reach. We always have something, but you see, he heard Jesus. He was sensitive to his message, but not enough to say, okay, I will leave everything behind now, right? Okay, any comments or? Okay, so let's keep on going.
Clothed in extraordinary light, his vassals multiplied, haloed in peace. Never had anyone presented himself with such authority, externalized without the need for weapons, groups for defense, or other pitiable, terrifying earthly means. He appeared suddenly with his followers in strange places, and by stretching out his hands, he changed the lives of those who came to know him. No one who met him was immune to his magnetism. They loved him or hated him immediately. There was no doubt he was the awaited king, but for whose kingdom no one was prepared.
So let's start it here just to complement the idea. So here she describes it, and we have to understand that when Joanna de Angelis talks about Jesus, not only, I'm sure she has access to Jesus in the spirit world, but she was living at the time of Jesus as Joan of Cusa, uh, the wife of Cusa, that was a man that worked with the Roman Empire at that time, and at that time had some resources, although he lost everything after. But she knew Jesus. She was one of the women that were there when Jesus was being crucified. She was one of the women that were there when Jesus made his first apparitions after his death. So when she describes him as, this clothed with extraordinary light, talking about all these things that he had, like in terms of his presence, his authority, but authority not the way we understand moral authority we are talking about here. And he would go to each and every place that he had the opportunity to go. He would touch everyone's life. He would reach for them, in this gesture, give me your hand, take the first step to follow me. And this, when she's talking in this message about a king, so she's talking about him utilizing a terminology that we use here on earth to describe the most important person. Okay, so Jesus is a king, is the most important person according to our vocabulary. But our vocabulary always relates to, domination, material things, power, wealthy, all of in here, they are talking about a completely different kingdom, a kingdom of the immortal spirit, which is what we are talking about here. So anyone would like to say something before we continue?
Jusara, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, this makes me think that what we're going through now in this lifetime, in the world that we're in, with so much turmoil and suffering and all. Um, and I go back and I say, we have become the world now very intellectual. We have everything we need, money, to live better lives. And yet there is something so profound here, so much missing of what we're reading right now. Christ. Is that what we need? Do we need Christ to come here and do it again? He's giving us all we have. So it's mind-boggling for me that what we're speaking about the time of Christ and Jesus, um, how he did what he did when he roamed the world here. And is I don't understand how we don't get it, that he is here with us now, not in person, but in spirit. And he's taught us all that we have here. And yet the world has gone back to, situations that are so overwhelming for a human being. And is that what we need? I think he came to show us, and it's there. We have it here in Spiritism, teaching us all this. And yet I wish that we could comprehend and understand how much we have to not forget who he was and who he is. And it's so hard. Am I thinking the wrong way? I don't know.
So I think while we were talking, the image that came to my mind is always, us to try to remember, um, you know, how children behave.
Okay.
Um, a child, it's very, behave in a very simple way. They want, to be fed, to sleep, to have good time, to get presents, new toys, play. But soon that new toy is no longer interesting, and they want a new toy. And up to a point that then they start growing, and we don't pay that much attention, and we start bringing toys, and they don't care that much for the toys anymore. They want something else. And I think we are in this, I mean, if we relate it to this, let's say the changes we have in life with us as spirits, what is happening now is exactly this transition from childhood to adulthood, where why don't I feel happy anymore with this, with getting a toy? And maybe I didn't get the right toy. Let me go to a different toy. Let me get something else. I go for something bigger. And the hollow is still there. The emptiness is still there. And I think we are like this. We mean, how come before I used to go and party and stay up all night with my friends, and that was the happiest times for me. And nowadays, okay, it's nice, but it's not what fulfills me. I think we are humanity is living this time. We are not quite ready yet to move from childhood to adulthood. Uh, but so we are clinging to what is known to us. No, well, I know that when I got a new toy, it was the best, right? So this is going to fix my problem, and maybe it does. And the day that you go and get yourself something nice, or have a nice afternoon tea with a friend, whatever, but and we keep on doing that, and the insatisfaction, the emptiness is there, because now, very much like adults, the thing is, it is no longer fulfilling me. But I don't know where to go. I don't know where I'm going to have this kind of simple satisfaction. And to try to admit that we are talking about things that are, not in the realm of seeing things, but in the realm of the unseen, is quite hard. And I don't think Jesus, I mean, this is my opinion, has to return. I think we have to keep on revisiting what he brought to us, because truth is, um, if he came today, I don't think he could add that much, because what he brought 2000 years ago, we still don't know. We still do not understand. So I think we need a little, at least, I don't know whether it is going to happen one day or not, but I think we need a little more time. And I think we are now going to a point where even science is coming to the conclusion of certain things that is spiritual knowledge already talks about. So I think we are living this moment of transition, and this moment that refers very much to us in particular, that is the changing of our moral nature. And to really open ourselves to analyze who we are. And so I know that when we look around, we don't see the world that we would like to be there, but I think this should be no reason to keep on believing. Yes. Because when we look back, it was so much worse. So there was progress. And see, even here in what Joanna de Angelis is saying, she is mentioning in the Roman Empire with cruelty, with constant wars, with devastation, and then there was only the change of one Roman emperor that was a little bit more, let's say, well-centered, right? And it was enough for Jesus to be born at that time and use this new psychosphere to spread the teachings of God. So I think things are happening. The discomfort that we are all going through is really to lead us to questioning about life and about our values. That's my way of seeing things.
Thank you, Sarah. I understand. Thank you.
Okay, Andrea, so we continue.
Yes. He frightened no one, expected by the loftiness of his arguments. He avoided any unfortunate manifestations. He spread love and refused any unfortunate manifestation. He spread love and refused intrigue, while upholding the fallen and suffering of all kinds. Little by little, those who heard him became divided. He spoke of heaven while almost everyone wanted the earth. He denounced crime. Most, however, delighted in committing it. He sank to humility and selflessness, living in complete simplicity. And he displeased those who cultivated pride and possessions. Human envy and sordidness followed him, not to learn his message, but to catch him in saying anything for which he could be accused, creating traps and rebelliousness to destroy him. And and he amazed everyone because he came to love and serve, building a kingdom of blessings in the core of people's heart. Although he himself did not always receive love, fidelity, and gratitude. This conduct did not surprise him because he knew that sowing is immediate, but the result requires time and opportunity. He was a ministry of sowing in the history of humanity, the power of love in confrontation with the darkness prevailing everywhere. Consequently, he was betrayed, denied, cruelly whipped, and then dragged through the narrow streets where he had passed before in false triumph to Calvary, which would serve as the backdrop for his ascension to God.
Here, it's no news for us, right? We that are familiar with the life of Christ, his messages, and even if we're not, just thinking about everyone nowadays, they are trying to change their ways and to live a more spiritual life, or at least to bring a little more of spirituality to their lives, to their behaviors. This is what we will find. We will find people that will feel discomfort, uneasiness next to us because you are doing things that they are not capable of doing. They are not willing to do it, and if there is someone doing it, it works against them. It works against their arguments of saying this is not possible to be done. So it's only natural that everyone that would not be able to change, and here we remember the story that we have by the Spirit Emmanuel, that he talks about himself, about his life. It's an autobiography when he talks about himself at the time of Jesus as being the senator Publius Lentulus. And when he had this dialogue with Jesus, and Jesus invited him to follow him, and he said, I cannot, right? He didn't persecute Christ. He didn't go against that. He understood that Christ was, that moral person. And Jesus told him, you follow me now, or it will take many centuries for you to come back to this point, which actually happened. It took him many centuries to return to the same position where he was there with Jesus. Um, and it's so, there were people that would admit, but would not be able to embrace, like we have today. So this is basically what we've seen. And Jesus knew this because he came to sow. And he was very much aware that the some of the seeds were going to be in not ready soil, and others would be in more propitious soil like it happened. Any question or comment? So we have this little part here to
Because he knew at the end that there was no place for him, he promised to send his messengers at a serious time for society so that he could lead it under his guidance to the kingdom of heaven. Spiritism arose in the century of lights, and it's now expanding and altering forever humanity's conduct for the better. This Christmas, invoke him, celebrate his birth, making your own heart a manger for him to be reborn and propagate his sublime musicality in this world in darkness that awaits him.
thank you, Andrea, for reading for me. So Jesus knew that, it was necessary to be sending messengers, and we had so many. One of them, like Francis of Assisi, for instance, that came to revive his teachings and bring his teachings to the simplicity way of being disseminated, and others, and the Spiritism being one of them. We are not saying that only Spiritism is doing that. We are seeing the evolvement of so many religious organizations nowadays in embracing you know things that are more in tune with the 21st century, for instance. So, and Spiritism being one of this representation with the voices of the benefactors under the guidance of Jesus to try us to lead to revisit again Jesus' teachings now under a new light, understanding more under the light of an immortal spirit, and having more understanding and knowledge about the things that Jesus taught us 2000 years ago. And in this passages, we are not in Christmas yet, but meaning if we want to celebrate Jesus, whatever the date for that we are going to choose, be it Christmas or any other day, the best way of celebrating it is changing our heart, is opening our heart to Jesus. Any question or comment? Okay. Anyway, let me stop sharing here. Okay, so no comments, no questions, nothing. How did you like the lesson today?
I love it. I think it reminding us of everything that he went through, not in a bad way, but makes us feel very small in terms of, there's so much bigger things out there that our issues, our tribulations, they're nothing compared to everything that has happened. And it's a very good lesson to put things into perspective, right? It's like when you visit someone in a hospital who is very sick, and then you realize, oh my God, I'm complaining because the subway was late. Like it's very good to put things into perspective. And when you go back to this time and you're like, oh my God, we've come a long way, and we're still here battling smaller things instead of, moving forward to the greater message that he left for us. So I thought it was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what inspires me, is always to think, if Jesus had it that bad, that it was so difficult, how can we imagine that it's not going to be difficult for us, right? But it's always like that. Every time, we've been seeing that there is this change in the world, and we have to be hopeful, and contributing, doing our share. This is what we are here to do. Anyone else? Okay, so we will finish for today. So before we leave, I wanted to show you something. Maybe some of you already saw it.
Yeah, great.
It's cute.
Oh,
My
oh,
God.
it's so small.
That is so adorable, Sarah. Okay.
I can't believe it's the 10th already. Isn't that crazy?
Ah,
Yeah,
time
so
flies.
I would like to
Right.
invite you all. Please tune in. We need people, to give us the support. We are going to be starting the Congress, International Spiritist Congress is going to be starting Friday. In the afternoon, I'll send the right time, the Eastern time for you also. And it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Saturday, I think at 12 or we will have the English segment because the Congress will be in 4 languages, Portuguese, English, French, and Spanish. So there will be blocks of each language so people can benefit from there. And so October 14, 15, and 16. Okay.
Okay.
Bye. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.